In the quiet halls of a Silicon Valley startup incubator, a single email disrupted Sundar Pichai's meticulously planned day. Its subject line was cryptic, a gift worth more than gold. He stared at the sender's name for a moment. Elon Musk. Sundar's mind raced. They were contemporaries, both heralded as technological visionaries, yet they had rarely crossed paths beyond brief handshakes at industry events. Why would Musk reach out like this? The email was brief. Dear Sundar, I've been inspired by your journey. Join me this Friday at a place that shaped my life. I think it might surprise you. Warm regards, Elon. There was no location, no time, only the ambiguity of curiosity and expectation. Sundar chuckled to himself. Elon Musk was known for his unpredictability, but this felt oddly personal. He leaned back in his chair, pondering. Was this about collaboration, competition, or something more profound? Friday came quickly. Sundar found himself seated in his car, a simple GPS pin as his only guide. It led him away from the familiar glass and steel campuses of Silicon Valley, through winding roads, and into the heart of a rural town. He pulled up to an unassuming schoolhouse, its brick walls weathered but standing firm, a stark contrast to the high-tech world he inhabited. A small group of children played outside, their laughter echoing in the stillness of the countryside. Elon Musk stood near the entrance, dressed simply in a gray jacket, hands in his pockets. He smiled as Sundar stepped out of his car. What is this place? Sundar asked, his curiosity piqued. Elon gestured toward the building. This, he said, his voice quieter than usual, is where it all began for me. The weight of his words lingered, and Sundar felt an odd mix of reverence and confusion. He had questions, but before he could voice them, Elon handed him a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. Open it, Elon said, his tone mysterious. Sundar hesitated, the box resting in his hands. He glanced at Elon, whose expression offered no hints, only quiet anticipation. Inside the box was something so unexpected that Sundar froze, the object resting in his palm like a puzzle waiting to be solved. What am I supposed to do with this? Sundar finally asked, his voice steady but edged with disbelief. Elon's eyes twinkled as he turned toward the schoolhouse. You'll see soon enough, he replied cryptically. The inside of the schoolhouse was unexpectedly alive. Walls were covered with children's crayon drawings and charts of basic arithmetic. Rows of wooden desks, polished with age, still bore faint carvings from decades of students who had once filled them. The faint scent of chalk lingered in the air, evoking an odd nostalgia. Sundar followed Elon silently, his curiosity mounting. You've built rockets, revolutionized transportation, and dreamt of colonizing Mars. Sundar began, his voice breaking the silence. And yet, here you are. Why this place? Elon paused by a large framed photograph hanging near the teacher's desk. It was a black and white image of a classroom in session, the children wide-eyed and attentive. A younger version of Elon stood near the back, almost unrecognizable. This is where I learned to think, Elon said, his tone reverent. It's also where I realized how fragile opportunity is. Most of the kids I sat with didn't get out of this town. Some never finished school. Sundar studied Elon's expression. He had seen Musk on stages and in interviews, always projecting confidence and ambition. But here, in this humble setting, he seemed human, grounded by something more personal than fame or success. Why show me this? Sundar asked. Elon turned toward him, his expression soft yet firm. Because you've lived a parallel story. Your journey from Chennai to leading Google, it's extraordinary. But how often do we think about the roads we didn't take, the ones that so many others couldn't? Sundar's grip tightened around the box he still carried. He thought of his childhood, growing up in a cramped house with limited resources, studying by the light of kerosene lamps. He remembered his father's sacrifices and the countless moments where life could have gone differently. You're right, Sundar said quietly. I've thought about it more than I'd like to admit. Elon nodded, his eyes scanning the room. This place shaped me, Sundar. It taught me the power of curiosity and the privilege of learning, but it also showed me something else, the staggering inequality that leaves so many behind. Elon gestured for Sundar to follow him further into the building. They entered a small library, its shelves packed with mismatched books. On a central table sat a large folder, its contents spilling out slightly. These, Elon said, lifting the folder, are stories from this town. Letters, photographs, records of students who came through these doors. Some of them thrived, many didn't, but all of them had dreams. He opened the folder, revealing a worn photograph of a little girl, her eyes bright with determination. She wanted to be an astronaut, Elon explained. She was brilliant, but her family couldn't afford to keep her in school. She ended up working in the fields, her potential never realized. I never forgot her face. Sundar's chest tightened. The parallels to his own journey were inescapable. How many children in his neighborhood had dreams just as big, only to have them crushed by circumstances beyond their control? Elon, Sundar said, his voice steadying, you didn't bring me here just to share your past, did you? Elon smiled faintly, his eyes glinting with determination. No, Sundar. I brought you here because I think we can change the future. Before Sundar could respond, Elon reached for the box in his hands. Gently, he flipped it open, revealing its contents once again. Inside lay a small, intricately designed key, gleaming with metallic precision. Sundar frowned. A key? Elon nodded. But not just any key. It unlocks the future, Sundar. Come with me, and I'll show you what I mean. What could a simple key represent, and why did Elon believe it held the power to change the future? The crisp air outside the schoolhouse bit into their skin as Sundar and Elon stepped onto a narrow dirt path. The key felt heavier in Sundar's pocket than it should have, its significance gnawing at him. Elon led the way toward a modest structure in the distance. As they walked, Sundar's mind raced with possibilities. A key to what? A symbolic gesture? Or something tangible? Something far greater? This place, Elon began, gesturing to the landscape around them. It's a reminder of what's possible when people like us don't just build things for profit, but for purpose. I wanted you to see this because I believe we've both been asking the same question in different ways. And what question is that? Sundar asked. How do we bridge the gap? Elon replied, his voice steady, between potential and opportunity. They stopped in front of a gated compound. The gate was old, its iron bars etched with the weathered patterns of time, but a new lock gleamed in stark contrast. Elon turned to Sundar and nodded toward his pocket. Go ahead, Elon said. Sundar pulled the key from his pocket, its cold surface pressing into his palm. He hesitated, glancing at Elon for reassurance. What's on the other side of this? He asked. Elon's lips curled into a knowing smile. The answer to that question depends on what you're willing to see. Taking a deep breath, Sundar slid the key into the lock and turned it. The gate creaked open, revealing a sprawling complex beyond, a juxtaposition of innovation and simplicity. Rows of solar panels glinted in the sunlight, powering classrooms filled with advanced learning tools. Children moved between the buildings, some hunched over tablets while others tinkered with mechanical projects under the watchful eye of mentors. This, Elon said, stepping forward, is Project Aurora. Sundar followed, his eyes scanning the details. It wasn't just a school, it was a haven of possibility. This place is a prototype, Elon explained, his tone tinged with pride. A fully self-sustaining educational hub designed to provide the best resources to the children who need them most. No tuition, no barriers. Sundar's mind reeled. This is incredible, Elon, but why show it to me? Elon turned, his gaze piercing. Because I can't do this alone, Sundar. Imagine what we could achieve together, your reach, your expertise in global connectivity. This is just one site. What if there were 1,000 of them? The weight of Elon's words sank in. Sundar had spent his career bringing information to the world, but this was about changing lives at the ground level. "And the key?" Sundar asked, holding it up. "It's yours," Elon said. "It symbolizes the commitment to open doors for others. Doors that were opened for us, even when we didn't realize it." Before Sundar could respond, a group of children approached. One of them, a girl no older than 8, held a small robotic arm she had built herself. "Look, Mr. Musk," she exclaimed, her voice bright with excitement. "It works now." Elon knelt beside her, inspecting the device with genuine interest. "That's amazing," he said. "What's your name?" "Asha," she replied, beaming. Sundar felt a lump rise in his throat. The name struck a chord, Asha meaning hope in Hindi. The girl's eager face mirrored the countless children he'd grown up with, their dreams often extinguished by circumstances beyond their control. Elon stood, glancing at Sundar. "She's why I'm doing this, why I need you to be part of it." Sundar crouched to meet Asha's gaze. "What do you want to build next, Asha?" Her eyes sparkled. "A robot that can plant trees," she said confidently. "We need more trees, don't we?" Sundar smiled, a sense of clarity washing over him. "Let's make that happen," he said. Sundar stood on the edge of the campus, his thoughts swirling like the wind that rustled the nearby trees. Elon's vision was breathtaking, but it also demanded a commitment that couldn't be taken lightly. He turned to Elon. "This is brilliant, but scaling something like this, across regions, across continents, it's monumental. What you're asking, it's not just a partnership, it's a life's work." Elon leaned against a solar panel frame, his posture relaxed but his gaze intense. "You're right, it's not a project, it's a mission, and missions require sacrifices. But tell me, Sundar, what's the point of all our advancements if they don't reach the people who need them the most?" Sundar sighed, his mind flashing back to his own rise. The long nights of study, the relentless pursuit of opportunities his parents had fought to give him. He had achieved more than he'd ever dreamed, yet Elon's words made him wonder if he had done enough to give back. "I have responsibilities, Elon," Sundar said, his voice quieter. "A company, a team, billions of users depending on the work we do." "And those responsibilities brought you here," Elon replied. "Think of what your platform could do for this. Imagine a child in rural India or sub-Saharan Africa, accessing not just information, but the tools to innovate, to build. Sundar, you've connected the world. I'm asking you to empower it." The weight of Elon's words pressed heavily on Sundar, but before he could respond, a young boy approached them, clutching a tattered notebook. His shy demeanor suggested he had been gathering courage for some time. "Excuse me," the boy said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Pichai?" Sundar knelt to meet the boy's gaze. "Yes?" "I heard you work with computers," the boy said. I want to build one someday. Do you think I can?" The boy's question landed with a force Sundar hadn't anticipated. He glanced at Elon, who said nothing, his expression carefully neutral. Sundar turned back to the boy and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I don't think you can," Sundar said, pausing as the boy's face fell slightly. "I know you can." The boy's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Really," Sundar said. "But here's the secret. You have to promise to teach someone else when you do. Deal?" The boy grinned and nodded. As the boy ran off, Elon smirked. "You're starting to get it." Sundar chuckled softly, but his expression quickly grew serious. "What you're building here, Elon, it's not just infrastructure. It's a movement. And movements, they demand more than resources. They need people who are willing to fight for them." Elon stepped closer, his voice lowering. "That's why I brought you here. You've been fighting for something your whole life, Sundar. This is just the next chapter." Sundar opened his mouth to respond, but a commotion near the schoolhouse interrupted them. A small crowd had gathered, murmurs of excitement rippling through the air. "What's going on? Sundar asked. Elon motioned for him to follow. They pushed through the cluster of children and mentors to find a girl seated at a makeshift workstation, a drone buzzing softly on the table before her. "It works!" she exclaimed, her voice trembling with excitement. The crowd erupted in applause, and Sundar couldn't help but smile. "What's her name?" he asked a nearby mentor. "Rima," the mentor replied. "She's been working on that drone for weeks. She wants to use it to deliver supplies to remote villages." Sundar's heart swelled. These children weren't just learning, they were solving real problems, the kind that could change lives. As the applause died down, Sundar turned to Elon. "If I say yes, we do this my way. No shortcuts, no compromises." Elon extended a hand. "That's exactly what I was hoping to hear." Sundar shook his hand, the weight of the decision settling over him. He was stepping into uncharted territory, but for the first time in years, it felt like the right path. If you're enjoying this story so far, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It costs you nothing, but for us, especially in these early days, it means the world. Let's continue with what happens next. The announcement of their partnership broke like a tidal wave across the world. Sundar and Elon stood together on a modest stage in front of the schoolhouse, addressing a crowd of journalists and educators. Behind them, children worked quietly on their projects, the hum of learning filling the air. "Our goal," Sundar said, his voice measured and confident, "is to create an ecosystem where talent doesn't go unnoticed simply because of where someone is born. Education shouldn't be a privilege, it should be a right." Elon stepped forward, his tone more commanding. "This isn't charity, this is investment. The minds we empower today will build the solutions for tomorrow. We're not just bridging the gap between potential and opportunity, we're erasing it." The applause was thunderous, but as the cameras clicked and the press filed their stories, the real work began. The scale of Project Aurora had grown exponentially. Elon's expertise in renewable energy powered campuses across rural regions, while Sundar's network brought affordable internet and learning tools to even the remotest areas. But with progress came challenges. One morning, Sundar sat in his office reviewing reports from the field. His phone buzzed, the screen flashing Elon's name. "We've hit a roadblock," Elon said the moment Sundar picked up. "Some local authorities are stalling our expansion in sub-Saharan Africa. They're demanding more than just permits. They want control over the curriculum." Sundar's jaw tightened. "They want to politicize it." "Exactly," Elon replied. "If we give in, it compromises everything we stand for." Sundar leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He knew this was just the beginning. Scaling Project Aurora meant navigating not just logistical hurdles but political and cultural complexities. "Elon," Sundar said, his voice firm, "we don't compromise. Let's find another way." But the challenges weren't just external. Internally, both men faced pushback from their own organizations. At a high-level meeting with his team, Sundar presented Project Aurora's progress and the resources it required. "This initiative is noble," one executive said, his tone polite but firm. "But it's also a massive allocation of funds and manpower. Are we sure this aligns with our core business objectives?" Sundar met the executive's gaze. "Our core business is connecting the world. If we don't ensure those connections lead to tangible opportunities, then what's the point?" The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over the team. Meanwhile, Elon faced similar resistance. Tesla board members raised concerns about his divided focus. "You've got Mars to conquer," one member argued. "Why sink resources into a venture that isn't directly aligned with our goals?" Elon's response was sharp. "Because what good is Mars if we can't even solve problems here on Earth?" Despite their determination, the project faced its first major failure. A planned campus in a flood-prone region of Southeast Asia was destroyed by a sudden monsoon before it could even open. Images of the ruined site circulated in the media, sparking criticism and doubts about the project's feasibility. pipe dream, one commentator called it. Even geniuses like Musk and Pichai can't overcome nature's fury and bureaucracy. Sundar stared at the headlines, frustration simmering beneath his calm exterior. He picked up the phone and called Elon. "Are we doing the right thing?" Sundar asked, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. Elon's reply was immediate. "Yes, and the fact that it's hard proves it's worth doing." Sundar nodded silently, drawing strength from Elon's conviction. Days later, a video emerged from another Aurora campus. It showed Asha, the girl Sundar had met during his first visit, demonstrating a prototype of her tree-planting robot to her classmates. Her words, simple yet profound, went viral. "We can't stop the storms, but we can grow forests to protect us from them." The video reignited public interest and support, with people donating and volunteering in record numbers. The momentum from Asha's viral video propelled Project Aurora to new heights. Donations poured in from individuals, companies, and governments. Volunteers flocked to remote campuses to teach, mentor, and build. It seemed, for a moment, that the mission was unstoppable. But Elon and Sundar knew better. Scaling a dream like this required not just enthusiasm, but an unwavering commitment to overcoming obstacles that grew with every new success. Sundar sat in his office late at night, poring over reports from Aurora campuses worldwide. His phone buzzed. Another call from Elon. "Sundar, we need to talk," Elon began, skipping pleasantries. His tone was sharper than usual. "What's wrong?" Sundar asked, leaning back in his chair. "It's the funding allocations," Elon said bluntly. "We're spending too much on infrastructure. We need to cut costs and scale faster." Sundar frowned. "Cutting corners isn't the answer, Elon. If we compromise on quality, we're setting these kids up for failure." "We're not building luxury schools, Sundar. We're building opportunity hubs. They don't need state-of-the-art facilities. They need access and tools." Sundar sighed, his voice calm but firm. "If we rush this, we risk losing the trust of the communities we're serving. One failure and everything we've built could crumble." The line went quiet for a moment. "You're too cautious," Elon said finally, his frustration evident. "Sometimes you have to take the risk and deal with the fallout later." "And sometimes," Sundar countered, "taking unnecessary risks means undoing years of work. We can't afford that." The call ended without resolution, a subtle rift forming between their approaches. As their debate simmered, a new challenge emerged, one neither of them had anticipated. A powerful conglomerate with ties to the education sector began lobbying against Project Aurora, claiming it disrupted local economies and threatened traditional schooling systems. "They're scared," Elon said during a meeting with Sundar and their leadership teams. "We're challenging their monopoly on education, and they know it." "But their reach is vast," Sundar replied. "They're influencing policymakers, spreading misinformation. If this spirals, it could derail everything." Elon smirked. "Good. If they're attacking us, it means we're doing something right." Sundar wasn't convinced. He knew how fragile public perception could be, especially when billions of dollars and thousands of lives were involved. The tipping point came during a high-stakes meeting with global stakeholders. Representatives from governments, NGOs, and private donors filled the room, eager to hear the latest updates on Project Aurora. Sundar stood at the podium, outlining their progress and addressing the challenges ahead. He spoke passionately about the need for sustainable growth, emphasizing the importance of trust and transparency. Elon followed, his speech more fiery and unyielding. He painted a vision of rapid expansion, urging stakeholders to embrace the risk and move faster. The room buzzed with tension as the two leaders presented contrasting strategies. When the floor opened for questions, a donor raised the issue directly. "Gentlemen, it's clear you both care deeply about this mission," she said, "but you seem to have different visions for how to achieve it. Which path are we supposed to follow?" Sundar and Elon exchanged a glance, the unspoken tension between them now laid bare. "We follow the path that ensures these children succeed," Sundar said calmly. "And we do it in a way that doesn't take decades," Elon added, his voice firm. The room fell silent, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. The tension between Sundar and Elon threatened to derail the project, but both men knew that failure wasn't an option. After the heated meeting, they convened privately, away from the prying eyes of stakeholders and the media. "I get it, Elon," Sundar said, his voice steady but resolute. "You want speed, scale, and impact, but rushing this risks the entire mission. If we lose trust, we lose everything." Elon leaned back, his arms crossed. "And I get you, Sundar. You want perfection, precision, but we can't afford to be so cautious that we end up moving too slowly. We're not just fighting for the kids in these classrooms. We're fighting a system that's betting on us to fail." They fell into a thoughtful silence, the weight of their shared responsibility hanging between them. Finally, Sundar broke the silence. "What if we find a middle ground, a phased rollout? We maintain quality while moving faster in regions where the need is most urgent." Elon tilted his head, considering. "A phased rollout. It could work, but we need to be ready to adapt, rapidly, if things go wrong." Sundar nodded. "Agreed. And we double down on transparency so stakeholders see that we're committed to both speed and sustainability." Elon extended a hand. "Let's make it happen." Sundar shook it, a sense of renewed purpose surging through him. Project Aurora had expanded to 25 countries, with campuses thriving in regions once thought unreachable. The phased rollout allowed for rapid scaling without compromising the program's integrity. In a heartwarming twist, Asha, the girl with the tree-planting robot, was invited to speak at the United Nations. Standing confidently before a room full of global leaders, she shared her story and demonstrated how her invention was now helping restore ecosystems in her village. "We were taught not just to learn," she said, her voice steady, "but to believe we could create a better world." Her words drew a standing ovation, a testament to the power of the initiative Elon and Sundar had envisioned. After the UN event, Sundar and Elon sat together in a quiet corner, watching as children mingled with world leaders. "You know," Elon said, a rare softness in his tone, "I didn't think we'd pull it off, but seeing this, it makes everything worth it." Sundar smiled. "We didn't pull it off alone. We pulled it off because we believed in what they could do." Elon nodded, raising his glass. "To the next generation." Sundar clinked his glass against Elon's. "To the next generation." The camera pans over an Aurora campus, where children are building, experimenting, and dreaming. Asha's robot plants a sapling in the background as the sun sets, its golden light symbolizing the hope and potential of a brighter future. Sometimes the greatest innovations aren't built in labs or boardrooms, they're built in classrooms where hope meets opportunity.